AITA for losing my cousin's wedding over a seating chart disaster. AITA for what happened to my cousin's wedding. I feel like I'm in a whirlwind of drama, and I honestly don't know if I'm the jerk or if everyone else is just overreacting. I need to get this off my chest, and maybe some perspective will help. So a bit of background. My cousin, let's call her Emily, is getting married to a guy named Brian. Emily and I have always been close, like cousins that basically grew up as siblings. She's been planning this wedding for over a year, and I was genuinely excited to be a big part of it. I was asked to help with decorations and seating arrangements, which I was thrilled about because I have some experience in event planning and thought I could make things run smoothly. The wedding guest list is complicated because both families are huge, plus Emily has a lot of friends, and Brian's family has their own dynamics. Emily insisted that the seating chart was her special project and wanted me to just organize it based on her preferences. That part one agreed to, though she warned me she was very particular about who sat where. Here's where things got tricky. Emily and I had multiple meetings going over the seating chart. I did exactly what she asked, except there were a few conflicts I noticed. For instance, there were some distant relatives who didn't get along with their college friends, and a couple of Brian's cousins who openly disliked some of Emily's childhood friends. I brought these issues up, suggesting minor adjustments so that nobody would feel awkward or end up arguing during the reception. Emily, however, was adamant that she wanted her plan exactly as she had mapped it out, saying she didn't want anyone moved. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything was beautiful. The venue looked amazing, the flowers were perfect, and the food smelled incredible. However, when people started arriving and looking for their tables, chaos began. Some guests refused to sit where they were assigned because of long-standing grudges, and a few fights broke out over seating disputes. One of Brian's uncles even started yelling at one of Emily's friends for taking his spot, which escalated quickly. The wedding coordinator tried to intervene, but with 30 people refusing to sit where assigned, it became impossible to manage. Emily was visibly stressed, and Brian was fuming. At this point, I was panicking because I had double-checked everything with her, but she had ignored my advice. I tried to calmly step in and suggest moving a few people around to diffuse the tension. Emily got extremely upset and told me I had no right to change her plan and that if I couldn't follow her wishes, I should leave. I felt trapped because I was literally in the middle of a wedding disaster that I had been trying to prevent. Long story short, the reception ended up being a mess. Half the tables were empty, some guests left mid-dinner, and there were at least 2 physical altercations, one of which involved drinks being spilled all over the floor and near the band's equipment. By the time the speeches rolled around, Emily was in tears, and Brian was quietly seething. I was sitting at my assigned table, stunned, and a few people came up to me to thank me for trying to fix things, while others glared and blamed me for not handling the seating better. After the wedding, Emily stopped talking to me completely. She posted on social media about how the wedding was ruined by careless planning without mentioning me directly, but everyone close to the family knew who she meant. Brian's parents made vague comments about how some people shouldn't meddle in family affairs. My own family is split. My parents think I was just trying to help and that Emily overreacted, while my aunt, who is Emily's mom, said I should have just obeyed Emily no matter what, regardless of the situation escalating. I honestly feel like I was put in an impossible position. I followed her plan, but tried to make minor suggestions to avoid obvious conflicts. I didn't change anything without her approval, but when the situation got out of control, I tried to intervene slightly to prevent chaos. Emily sees it as me disrespecting her wishes and sabotaging the wedding. I see it as me trying to save the day. Now, several months later, my relationship with Emily is completely broken. Other family members keep bringing up the wedding disaster at gatherings, which makes it even more awkward. I haven't been invited to family parties, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around anyone remotely connected to Emily and Brian. I don't want to be the cousin who ruined the wedding, but I genuinely don't think I did anything wrong, at least not intentionally. AITA for trying to intervene when the seating chart completely blew up, even though Emily specifically told me not to change anything. Or am I just the scapegoat for a situation that could have gone wrong no matter what? I feel like if Emily had listened to my advice, the wedding could have been enjoyable for everyone. But now I'm left with this mess and a ruined relationship with the cousin I've always been close to. Has anyone ever dealt with something like this? Was I really wrong to step in and try to fix the chaos? Or is Emily just refusing to take any responsibility for her own planning decisions? I feel stuck between being accused of ruining the wedding and knowing I actually tried to prevent disaster. I'm at a complete loss, and it's tearing me up inside. AITA, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for telling my sister she can't move her family into my house after her divorce. I, 34F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 30F, but we've also had our fair share of tension. She's always been the dramatic, everything is an emergency type, while I pride myself on being organized and level-headed. I live in a medium-sized city in a 3-bedroom townhouse that I own. It's not huge, but it's cozy, and I've worked really hard to make it a home I love. My husband, Mark, 36M, and I have been married for 8 years, and our relationship is stable. We both work full-time, and we share household responsibilities evenly. Our finances are comfortable but not unlimited, and we like our quiet, structured life. Emily recently went through a messy divorce from her husband of 6 years, which was finalized about 2 months ago. She has 2 children, Mia, 7, and Luke, 5, and her divorce left her with almost nothing because she agreed to waive a significant portion of her settlement to expedite things. Emily reached out to me a few weeks ago, saying she had nowhere to go and was hoping we could help her temporarily until she got back on her feet. She explained that she needed a safe, stable environment for her kids, and since Mark and I live relatively close to her work, it would be perfect. I try to be empathetic and supportive. I listened to her story and offered advice on financial planning, childcare, and applying for assistance programs. However, when she explicitly asked if she could move in with us, I hesitated. I considered it carefully. Our townhouse has 3 bedrooms, one for us, one for our office/guest room, and one that I keep as a hobby room. Emily wanted to take the guest room, and the kids would sleep in our office. That would effectively turn our peaceful home into a full-time daycare scenario. When I told Emily I couldn't accommodate her and the kids, she got really upset. She started listing all the ways I could help family and how I would be the only person standing between her and homelessness. She argued that since I was financially stable, it was my moral obligation to help. I tried explaining that it wasn't just about money. It was about space, boundaries, and the long-term impact on our household. I told her that our house is just not big enough to comfortably host her family, especially indefinitely, and that adding 3 people into our space would strain everything from routines to finances. Emily didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She even said I was prioritizing my perfect little life over my own family. Mark and I were both upset because we felt like we were being unfairly villainized. We made it clear that we wanted to support Emily in ways that didn't involve living with us, helping her look for rental housing, providing babysitting occasionally, or giving her advice about government assistance programs. But she dismissed these offers as insufficient. Things escalated when Emily told our parents. I have a complicated relationship with them. They tend to side with whoever complains the loudest, but I thought they would understand our reasoning. Instead, they confronted me, saying that family should stick together and that I was being heartless. They suggested I at least let her stay for a month or 2 until she got a new place, implying that we were morally obligated to help family in crisis. At this point, I felt trapped between my sister's demands and my parents' expectations. I reminded everyone that helping doesn't have to mean letting someone live in your house. I suggested alternative ways to help, like contributing to a deposit for a rental or helping her pack and organize. Emily then accused me of trying to buy her off and implied that Mark and I didn't actually care about her kids' well-being. The tension became so high that Mark and I started avoiding calls from both Emily and our parents. Last week, Emily posted on social media about our argument, framing me as the selfish sister who refuses to help family in need. I received texts and calls from friends and extended family asking why I wouldn't help her. Some even said I should reconsider because family comes first. I'm frustrated because I feel like no matter how much I offer in terms of advice, financial support, or temporary childcare, it's never enough. I'm also worried about the precedent this could set. If we let her move in now, it could become indefinite, and it might seriously affect our marriage and mental health. I'm beginning to think I made the right decision, but the guilt and family pressure are intense. Mark supports me fully, but I can tell he's stressed by the constant conflict with Emily. I've tried reaching out to Emily calmly, saying we could help in other ways, but she either doesn't respond or accuses me of being cruel. I even offered to help her find a roommate situation or a smaller rental she could afford, but she hasn't taken any of these steps. AITA for telling my sister she can't move her family into our house. I feel like I'm doing what's reasonable for my household, but Emily and my parents think I'm heartless. I know she's struggling, and I want to support her, but I also need to protect my home and my marriage. I don't want to burn bridges, but I also don't want to sacrifice my life and space in a way that will cause long-term tension. The situation is messy, and I honestly don't know how to navigate it without making anyone feel rejected. I'm torn between empathy for my sister and the need to maintain boundaries. So, Reddit AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I raise my child, even though it caused a huge family rift. I, 32F, have always been close with my family, especially my younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up in a household where my parents were very involved, sometimes overbearing, but I always considered our bond strong and supportive. Emily has always had a very strong personality. She's confident, outspoken, and always seems to think she knows best, which I used to admire, but it has become more challenging since I had my child. I have a 2-year-old son, Lucas, and from the beginning, I have been very particular about my parenting choices. I do research, try to balance advice from multiple sources, and generally make decisions I feel are best for Lucas. I breastfed for over a year. I'm careful about nutrition, sleep routines, and social interactions, and I make an effort to ensure he's exposed to a variety of experiences while maintaining structure. The issue started about 6 months ago. Emily started making comments about how I parented Lucas. She would say things like, "You shouldn't let him cry like that. It's traumatic," or "He should be eating solid food by now, not just finger foods." At first, I laughed it off and explained my choices politely, but she became more persistent. She started sending me articles, books, and links to parenting websites, insisting that I follow her suggestions. I tried to remain polite, but I also started feeling frustrated because she was undermining my authority and my decisions as a parent. It all came to a head during a family dinner at our parents' house. Emily had brought her new boyfriend, who is a pediatric nutritionist, and she launched into a lecture in front of everyone about how Lucas's diet was all wrong and that I was stunting his development by not introducing certain foods earlier. I calmly told her that I appreciated her input, but that I had already researched and decided what was best for Lucas. She didn't take the hint and kept insisting, raising her voice and ignoring my attempts to redirect the conversation. My parents intervened, trying to mediate, and that's when Emily said something that really hurt me. "You're so stubborn and closed-minded. Lucas deserves better than a parent who won't listen to advice." I was livid. I told her that this wasn't a debate and that my choices as a parent were final. I made it clear that I would not tolerate unsolicited criticism in my own home or in front of family. She stormed out, and the dinner ended awkwardly. Since that night, our relationship has deteriorated. Emily has accused me of being overly defensive and controlling and claims that I am alienating her from Lucas. She has started posting on social media about toxic family dynamics without naming anyone, which I suspect is aimed at me. My parents are caught in the middle. They agree that Emily can be overbearing, but also think I could be less rigid and accept family advice to keep peace. I've tried talking to them, explaining that this isn't about rejecting family advice, but about maintaining boundaries and ensuring Lucas's well-being. I reached a point where I had to make a tough decision. Emily had been asking to babysit Lucas, and I had always let her, trusting her judgment. After the dinner incident, I told her that Lucas would not be staying with her until we could rebuild trust and respect boundaries. She reacted extremely negatively, sending multiple messages accusing me of being a bad sister and saying that I was punishing her for caring. I didn't respond because I wanted to give us both time to cool off. The conflict has now spilled over into holiday plans. My parents want us all together for Easter, but I have said I am only comfortable attending if Emily can respect my parenting choices and refrain from lecturing or criticizing in front of Lucas. Emily refuses, claiming that I am unfairly controlling and trying to isolate her from her nephew. The rest of the family is frustrated, and I feel guilty for causing tension, but I also feel strongly that I cannot compromise on my boundaries when it comes to my child. I have discussed my feelings with a few friends, and they mostly support me, saying that Emily is crossing the line and that parenting decisions are ultimately mine. Some have said I might be too rigid and should find a compromise, but I honestly cannot see a compromise where my child's routine, safety, and my authority as a parent are undermined. I have offered alternative ways for Emily to be involved, such as reading to Lucas, going to the park, or helping with activities she chooses, but she insists that if she can't guide my parenting decisions, she won't participate. I am exhausted and emotionally drained. I miss my sister and our previous closeness, but I also refuse to let her criticism dictate my parenting or cause confusion for Lucas. I keep wondering if I'm being unreasonable or too harsh. I want to maintain family relationships, but not at the expense of my child's stability or my confidence as a parent. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I raise my child and for setting firm boundaries, even though it has caused a major family conflict. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding plans derail my family vacation. I, 32F, have always been the type to meticulously plan trips, especially since I work a demanding job as a project manager. Last year, I booked a family vacation for the summer. My parents, my younger brother, 28M, and I were going to spend 2 weeks in Italy. We have been saving up for it for years and finally managed to coordinate our schedules perfectly. I was extremely excited because traveling together is something we all cherish, and it was our first long trip without any work or school obligations interfering. A month before the trip, my sister, 29F, called me. She's always been dramatic, but usually in a humorous way. This time it wasn't funny. She announced she had decided to get married in July. She insisted that the wedding should happen during the exact week we had booked for Italy. At first, I thought she was joking because it sounded absurd, but she was completely serious. She explained that her fiancé had taken a month off from work and that they really wanted a summer wedding. She asked if we could either change our vacation plans or come back early for the wedding. I tried to reason with her. I reminded her that we had booked flights and hotels months ago, some of which were non-refundable. I explained that changing the vacation dates would cost thousands of dollars and would be impossible for me and my parents due to work commitments. I also told her that it was unfair to disrupt plans we had all been looking forward to for years, especially since we had coordinated this trip together and spent months planning. Her response was a mix of disbelief and guilt-tripping. She told me that I was being selfish and that family should come first. She also mentioned that our absence would ruin her special day, and that if we didn't attend, it would create a huge rift in the family. I felt torn because I cared deeply about her, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore the fact that we had invested a lot of time, money, and effort into this trip. We tried to compromise. I suggested that maybe we could attend a later part of the wedding, perhaps the reception or a post-wedding celebration, but she dismissed this idea, saying it wouldn't be the same. I even offered to help her with wedding planning, pay for a vendor or two, or assist in any way remotely, but she insisted that my physical presence during the ceremony was non-negotiable. Tensions escalated. She started sending messages to my parents, trying to convince them that our vacation was trivial compared to her wedding. My parents sided with me, understanding that it was unreasonable to cancel such a significant trip at the last minute. My brother tried to mediate, suggesting that she compromise by either shifting her wedding by a few days or allowing us to attend a portion of it. But she refused both. When the week of the wedding arrived, I stuck to my decision and went on the vacation. During our trip, we visited Rome, Florence, and Venice, enjoying every moment. We documented everything and sent pictures to my sister, hoping it would soften her resentment. However, when we returned, the tension had only increased. She gave us the cold shoulder and barely spoke to any of us for several weeks. Family gatherings became awkward, with her subtly reminding us that she felt betrayed. At first, I tried to be understanding, but the more she complained, the more frustrated I became. She accused me of prioritizing luxury over family and claimed that I didn't care about her happiness. I reminded her that supporting her in other ways during the wedding planning was still an option, but she didn't acknowledge it. She also brought up other family events where she felt I wasn't present, using it to argue that this was a pattern of behavior, which I felt was unfair because most of my absences were due to unavoidable work or prior commitments. The situation escalated further when she posted on social media about how some family members chose travel over love, tagging both my parents and brother. This was publicly humiliating, and it drew comments from distant relatives asking why I didn't attend. I felt cornered and reached my breaking point. I had never imagined that standing my ground on a vacation could lead to such hostility. Months later, we're still dealing with the fallout. My sister barely speaks to me directly, mostly communicating through my parents. She's invited me to subsequent family events, but with a clear sense of judgment hanging over my head. My parents and brother have expressed disappointment in how she handled the situation, acknowledging that while her feelings were valid, the way she pressured everyone was unreasonable. I still feel guilty at times because I know how much the wedding meant to her, and I do value family above most things. But I also know that compromising my own plans, after years of careful preparation and significant financial investment, would have set a precedent for being manipulated into giving up on important personal commitments. I've tried to apologize for any hurt caused, but she refuses to accept it, interpreting my apology as acknowledgement of wrongdoing in choosing the trip. So now, I'm left questioning myself. Did I handle this situation correctly? Was I genuinely in the right for prioritizing a pre-planned family vacation over attending my sister's wedding? Or should I have made more sacrifices to maintain harmony? The family dynamic has shifted, and I'm unsure if there's a way to mend things without one side feeling like they lost. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding dictate my family vacation plans? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me for my appearance? I've been grappling with this situation for months, and I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who has always been the golden child of our family. Growing up, she was athletic, outgoing, and effortlessly social. I, on the other hand, have always been introverted and struggle with self-esteem issues. My parents never really helped with this. They often compared me to Emily, praising her achievements while subtly criticizing mine. Over the years, I've worked hard to carve out my own life, and I thought we had reached a point where we could coexist without constant comparison. That wasn't the case. Emily got engaged about a year ago. At first, I was excited for her because I know she's been looking forward to this for a long time. The trouble started when she began discussing wedding plans. From the beginning, it seemed like everything had to be perfect and that everyone involved had to reflect her ideal vision of beauty, style, and class. I tried to be supportive, offering to help with invitations, decorations, and anything she needed. I thought I was being helpful, but apparently, my efforts weren't enough. About 2 months ago, Emily announced her bridal shower. She invited our family and close friends. I had been hesitant about attending because I'm very self-conscious about my weight and appearance, but I decided to go because it felt important to support her. When I arrived, I noticed she had asked everyone to dress in a specific color palette, wear certain types of dresses, and even styled hair in a particular way. I wore a dress I thought matched her theme, but Emily immediately pulled me aside in front of several guests. She told me, "This dress doesn't really fit the aesthetic. Maybe next time, Try something more flattering and less frumpy." I was stunned. I could feel my face burning, and I didn't know how to respond. I mumbled something about trying to match her theme, and she left me standing there while everyone else laughed politely. That was not an isolated incident. Over the next few weeks, she made several passive-aggressive comments about my appearance, my wardrobe, my makeup, and even my career choices. She framed it as helpful advice, but always in a public setting or in a group chat where our friends and family could see. I tried addressing it privately, telling her that her comments hurt me and that I didn't feel comfortable being critiqued constantly, but she brushed me off, saying I was being too sensitive and needed to lighten up. Then came the final straw. Last week, Emily posted a picture on social media of her bridal party. She had captioned it with something like, "Can't wait for my perfect wedding surrounded by my beautiful bridesmaids. So glad everyone fits the vibe." She tagged everyone except me. I know it might seem small, but given how careful she's been about appearances, it felt like a deliberate slight. I called her, asking why I wasn't included, and she said, I just didn't think your look really matched the aesthetic we're going for." It's nothing personal. I felt completely humiliated. After that, I made the decision to not attend the wedding. I told my parents and Emily that I couldn't be part of an event where I felt constantly judged and demeaned. Emily exploded. She accused me of being selfish, jealous, and trying to ruin her special day. She's cut off communication with me entirely and has been posting on social media about toxic family members who couldn't support her dream wedding. Our mutual friends are caught in the middle, and some have told me I might be overreacting. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on this. I genuinely wanted to support my sister and be there for her, but I also need to protect my mental health and self-esteem. I feel like Emily weaponized her wedding against me, turning what should be a happy family event into a platform to shame and control me. I know some might say that weddings are stressful and that she didn't mean to hurt me intentionally, but the consistent public criticism and exclusion make it hard for me to believe that. I don't want our family to fall apart, and I still care about Emily deeply, but I also can't pretend that her behavior was acceptable. I've tried therapy to work through some of my insecurities and build my self-confidence, but nothing has prepared me for being shamed by someone I love in such a blatant way. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she publicly shamed me and excluded me from important parts of her celebration. I feel torn between supporting family traditions and setting boundaries for my own well-being. My parents think I'm being too harsh, and Emily refuses to talk to me, calling me dramatic. I don't know if I'm justified or if I'm overreacting. I just want to preserve my dignity without burning bridges completely. Has anyone else dealt with this kind of family dynamic? How do you protect yourself while maintaining family ties when a sibling seems determined to make your flaws part of their event? I'm really struggling and would appreciate honest perspectives. I know some might argue that weddings are about the bride and she can do whatever she wants, but I also believe that love and family support shouldn't come with humiliation attached. I've tried talking to Emily, tried understanding her point of view, and tried compromising. Nothing has changed, and now I'm left with a choice between attending a wedding that will likely make me miserable or staying away and facing backlash. I keep wondering if I'm being selfish by prioritizing my emotional well-being over family expectations. But every time I imagine going to that wedding, I feel anxiety, shame, and dread. I just don't know if that makes me the bad guy here. Has anyone navigated a situation where a sibling's big life event became a platform for judgment rather than celebration? I want to believe that it's possible to care about family without sacrificing your self-respect, but right now it feels impossible. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after months of public criticism and exclusion. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I never thought I would be in a position where I would openly admit that I don't want to attend a family member's wedding, but here I am. I, 32F, have always been very close to my sister, 28F, and for the longest time, we were inseparable. We shared everything growing up, from clothes to secrets, and even when we moved into adulthood, we kept the same closeness. That's why it's so hard for me to explain why I can't bring myself to celebrate her upcoming wedding. My sister, Emily, met her fiancé, Brad, about a year and a half ago. At first, I tried to be welcoming and supportive. I met him several times in group settings and even went to a few dinners with them. But over time, I started noticing patterns in his behavior that made me uncomfortable. For one, he has a habit of belittling Emily in subtle ways. For example, if she talks about a professional achievement, he'll say things like, "Well, you only got that because they needed someone, right?" Or, "That's cute, but maybe not as impressive as it sounds." It's always presented in a joking tone, but it's consistent and pointed. I initially brushed it off as teasing, but it didn't feel right, and Emily never seems to defend herself or call him out. Another thing is that Brad has a very controlling streak. He has asked Emily to change aspects of her lifestyle, from what she eats to how she dresses. He also seems to isolate her from some of our family members, making comments like, "Your family doesn't understand us," whenever we try to invite her to events. I confronted her gently a few times, asking if she felt comfortable with these changes, and she insists that she's happy and that he's just looking out for her. I want to believe her, but seeing someone I love being subtly manipulated is incredibly distressing. The breaking point for me came a few months ago when I attended one of their dinners. Brad made a joke about me being single and suggested that my career-first mentality was why I was alone. Emily laughed along with him, and even though I laughed too, I felt deeply hurt. When I tried to bring up my feelings later, Emily told me I was being too sensitive and that Brad didn't mean it. That's when I realized that I could not rely on Emily to see his controlling or demeaning behavior for what it is. The wedding planning started soon after, and I was initially happy for her, thinking maybe I could push aside my concerns and just support her. However, things escalated. Brad has been very insistent about how the wedding should go, to the point of telling Emily that certain family members, myself included, should have limited involvement. He also made a comment that he didn't want negative energy at the wedding, which felt like a direct reference to me, because I had openly disagreed with some of his ideas for the ceremony and the guest list. Emily called me last month and asked if I would be part of the wedding party. I was honest and said that I couldn't participate, explaining my concerns about Brad and how uncomfortable I felt around him. She was visibly upset, but said she respected my decision to skip being in the party. I thought that was the end of it, but then she sent a text asking if I would at least attend the ceremony. I didn't reply immediately because I was trying to weigh my feelings. Part of me wanted to attend because I love my sister and I know this is an important day for her. But the other part of me felt that by attending, I would be condoning a relationship I genuinely believe is harmful to her. I finally told her I couldn't attend at all. My reasoning was that I didn't want to be in an environment where I would feel anxious or upset, and I didn't want to give Brad any impression that I supported his behavior. I also mentioned that I hoped she would understand that my absence was about protecting my own mental health and not a statement against her. Emily's response was cold. She accused me of being dramatic and selfish and said that I was choosing to punish her because of my personal feelings toward Brad. She said she couldn't believe I would put my own discomfort above her wedding day. Since then, other family members have reached out to me. My parents are caught in the middle, pleading with me to attend because it's family and once in a lifetime. My younger brother thinks I'm overreacting and says that I should just suck it up for a few hours. Some of our cousins have asked me if I'm really serious about not going, implying that I'm ruining the wedding atmosphere. On the other hand, a few family members who have witnessed Brad's behavior have privately told me they understand my position and support my decision to prioritize my mental health. I feel torn. I miss my sister terribly, and I want to celebrate her happiness. But the thought of being around Brad, hearing him make subtle jabs, and watching Emily acquiesce to his controlling tendencies makes me feel sick. I've tried to explain this to Emily multiple times, but she interprets it as me attacking her choices rather than expressing concern for my own boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't trust or respect her fiancé, even though it deeply upsets her and other family members. I worry that by not showing up, I might permanently damage our relationship, but I also feel that going would compromise my mental health and personal values. I keep going back and forth, wondering if I'm making the right call or if I'm being selfish. I just don't know how to navigate loving someone while simultaneously being unwilling to condone their partner's behavior. This is the first time in my life that I've considered skipping a family wedding, and I'm struggling with guilt, sadness, and fear of judgment from the rest of the family. I want to protect my own well-being, but I also don't want to lose my sister. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 26F. Growing up, we were practically inseparable, sharing clothes, secrets, and dreams. As we got older, our lives naturally diverged. Emily got into fashion design, and I pursued a career in social work, but we remained close, constantly supporting each other through big life events, heartbreaks, and achievements. Our parents have always been more emotionally distant, so our bond has always felt like our safe place. About 2 years ago, Emily started dating Mark, 30M. At first, I liked him. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in Emily's passions. He made a good impression on my parents, too, which, for better or worse, matters in our family. Over time, however, I started noticing red flags. It began with subtle things. He would often interrupt Emily when she was talking and dismiss her ideas. I saw him correct her in public on trivial matters, like mispronouncing a word or forgetting a minor fact about something, and she would laugh it off nervously. It wasn't just me noticing. A couple of our mutual friends privately mentioned that he could be condescending. I tried to ignore it because I didn't want to poison Emily's happiness. Then came the more concerning incidents. Last year, during a family dinner at our parents' house, Emily and Mark got into a disagreement about wedding plans. He raised his voice, talking over her, and even mocking her ideas in front of everyone. I tried to intervene gently, saying something like, "Let's all calm down and talk this through," but he brushed me off. Emily looked mortified, and I was furious at how dismissive he was. She later texted me that night, apologizing for how I had to witness it, and that she felt trapped because he was so good at guilt tripping. There were other instances, too. He would make comments about Emily's body or appearance in ways that made me uncomfortable, always framed as jokes. He pressured her to attend events she wasn't comfortable with and belittled her choices, insisting he knew better. Emily confided in me that he sometimes gaslighted her, making her doubt herself or her memory of events. I want to talk to her about breaking up, but she always said she loved him and didn't think it was that bad. She also said he was trying to improve and he really cares about me. Fast forward to the engagement. Emily called me the day she got engaged, and of course, I congratulated her. I wanted to be excited, but I also had this lingering unease. As the wedding planning progressed, the behavior I had noticed became more pronounced. He made several unilateral decisions without consulting her, including the venue, guest list, and menu. When she questioned him, he would respond with passive-aggressive comments or sometimes outright guilt trips. I began to dread being around him because he made me feel tense and defensive, and I started skipping events I knew he would be at. Then came the tipping point. Last month, Emily and Mark invited me to a wedding planning weekend. I reluctantly went, hoping I could help Emily and perhaps see the man I thought I liked at the start. Within 2 days, he humiliated her in front of her friends by mocking her design ideas, made condescending comments about her family, and even told her that her dress choice was not classy enough multiple times. He did this in a joking tone, but it was clearly intended to belittle her. I finally had enough. On the last night, Emily and I had a heart-to-heart. I expressed my concern about his behavior, telling her that I couldn't ignore what I was seeing anymore. I told her that, in my opinion, he was emotionally manipulative and controlling, and that continuing this relationship could have long-term negative effects on her. She cried, saying she knew some of what I was seeing but felt torn between her feelings for him and the reality of his behavior. She asked me if I would still attend the wedding, and I told her the truth. I couldn't. Not because I didn't love her or want to celebrate her, but because I couldn't condone the way he treats her. Emily was hurt, naturally. She accused me of being overdramatic and unsupportive. Mark, I later found out, has been telling mutual friends that I am jealous and trying to sabotage the wedding. My parents are caught in the middle. They respect my opinion and admit they've seen some concerning things, but they think I should put my feelings aside for the sake of family harmony and attend the wedding. Emily's fiancé and his family are pushing her to insist that I attend as a show of familial support. I've been firm. I've told Emily I will support her in other ways, helping with planning from a distance, sending a generous wedding gift, and being there for her emotionally before and after the wedding. But I cannot bring myself to be physically present while witnessing what I consider ongoing emotional abuse. Since then, the fallout has been intense. My parents are disappointed, Emily is upset, and a few mutual friends have stopped talking to me. Some have said I'm overstepping boundaries and that it's not my place to judge a relationship. Others, though, have privately told me they completely understand and support my decision. I feel torn. I want to be there for my sister, but I also feel strongly that attending would compromise my values and my mental health. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I keep second-guessing myself because part of me worries I'm being dramatic or controlling, but another part of me knows that I can't ignore what I've witnessed. I don't want to cause a family rift, but I also cannot in good conscience sit by while someone I love is belittled and manipulated. Has anyone else faced something similar? Am I wrong to prioritize my boundaries over attending a wedding that's important to my sister? AITA for refusing to give my sister's children a place to stay even though they're family in need. I, 32F, have always had a pretty structured life. I work a 9 to 5, own a small apartment, and try to keep things neat and organized. My sister, Emily, 28F, has had a much messier life. She's been in and out of relationships, never really held a stable job, and has 2 kids, ages 6 and 8, from different fathers. She's been living with her parents for the past year, but apparently things have gotten tense there, and now she's forced to find somewhere else to stay. Last week, Emily called me in panic. She was crying on the phone, saying she had nowhere to go, her parents kicked her out, and she needed me to take the kids in just for a few days. At first, I was sympathetic. I mean, who wants their kids to be out on the street? But I knew that just a few days with Emily has never really meant a few days. She has a habit of turning small favors into months-long arrangements. Plus, I have a strict routine and a small apartment that barely fits me comfortably. I told her I couldn't accommodate her and the kids. I explained that my apartment only has 1 bedroom, I work full-time, and I can't just throw my life into chaos for someone else, even family. She cried more, accused me of being selfish, and started saying things like, "You don't understand what it's like to be in my shoes, and if you cared about family, you'd help." I stayed firm, though, and suggested she look into local shelters, friends, or even some temporary rental options. The next day, Emily sent me a barrage of messages. She tried guilt-tripping me by posting a photo of her kids on social media with a caption about being homeless and abandoned by family. That went too far for me. I replied, asking her not to drag me into her social media drama, and reiterated that I could not take them in. She accused me of not loving my niece and nephew and implied that I was heartless. Things escalated at our family group chat. Emily's parents were upset with me too, although I'm not sure why. They said, "Family should help each other," and "She's in a crisis. Why are you being so rigid?" I try to explain that helping doesn't mean destabilizing my own life and that I'm willing to help in other ways, like driving them to appointments, helping her find a place, or financially assisting with temporary housing. They responded that I was technically helping, but not really, and that my help was half-hearted. Over the weekend, Emily turned up at my apartment unannounced with the kids, carrying suitcases and insisting that I at least let the kids stay in the living room while she figured something out. I refused at the door. She started crying and raised her voice, saying I was traumatizing her children by refusing them a roof over their heads. I told her that the children would be fine with their parents or with her working to find a safe place, and that this behavior was not acceptable. After she left, I called my parents to ask if I had overreacted. My mom sided with me mostly, saying that she understands I have a busy schedule and limited space. My dad, however, said I was too cold and should have just helped for a few days, noting that family should be prioritized over convenience. My partner, who lives with me, supported me completely, arguing that our apartment isn't a shelter and that taking in Emily and the kids would disrupt our work, sleep, and daily life. I also tried reasoning with Emily directly. I offered to pay for a few nights in a nearby motel for her and the kids, gave her a list of local assistance programs, and even offered to buy groceries for the next week if she could find a temporary place. She said all of that wasn't enough, that it doesn't compare to having a home, and that I was making excuses. It's now been 2 weeks. Emily has moved into a friend's couch temporarily, but the drama hasn't ended. She still posts on social media about her abandoned children and tags me, saying I refuse to help. Our extended family is split. Some think I was right to protect my space and mental health, while others think I fail morally because they're children and you never know when you will need family to return a favor. I feel torn because I do care about my niece and nephew, and I've been trying to help in ways that don't disrupt my life. I worry that my refusal will make the kids resent me or affect our relationship in the long term. On the other hand, I feel that if I give in, it will set a precedent where my home becomes a revolving door for Emily's crises, and that I will constantly be guilt or manipulated. So, AITA for refusing to take in my sister and her children, even temporarily, even though they are family in need. I have offered alternative support, but it doesn't seem to be accepted. I feel like I'm being reasonable, but my family's reactions make me question myself. Has anyone been in a similar situation where a family member needed emergency housing, but you couldn't provide it? How do you navigate helping without compromising your own stability and boundaries? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live in my house despite her insistence. I, 32F, live in a 3-bedroom townhouse in a mid-sized city. I've been living here for about 4 years now, and I like having my space organized the way I want it. I work remotely as a graphic designer, so my home doubles as my office. I am very particular about my environment. Things have to be clean, quiet, and orderly for me to function properly. My sister, Emma, 28F, has always been more of a free spirit. She moves from one place to another, rarely commits to anything long-term, and has a history of bringing people into her life very suddenly. She's very close to me, though, and we have a pretty good relationship most of the time. About 6 months ago, she started dating a guy named Ryan, 30M. From the start, I didn't feel great about him. He seemed controlling, and there were a few red flags in the way he talked about other people and treated service staff. Emma was smitten, of course, and brushed off my concerns. I didn't push too hard because it's not really my place to interfere in her relationships, but I kept an eye on the situation. Fast forward to 2 months ago. Emma got laid off from her job due to company restructuring and was struggling financially. Around this time, she called me in a panic one Friday night and asked if Ryan could stay at my house for a few days because their apartment had a pest problem. I hesitated, but I agreed reluctantly because I didn't want her to be homeless. I made it clear that it was temporary, that he needed to respect my space, and that this wasn't going to be a regular thing. Ryan stayed for 3 nights. During that time, he left dirty dishes everywhere, used my expensive coffee equipment without asking, and kept the TV on loudly late at night. I tried to address these issues politely, but he brushed me off with jokes or sarcastic comments. Emma apologized on his behalf, but honestly, I was irritated enough that I considered never letting him in again. Then, last month, Emma called again. This time, she was desperate. Her apartment had serious water damage, and she asked if Ryan could move in for a week or 2 while repairs were being made. I said no. I explained my reasons calmly. I work from home, I need quiet and order, and I don't feel comfortable having someone in my home who doesn't respect my space. I also mentioned the last time he stayed, he didn't follow basic house rules. Emma did not take this well. She started crying on the phone, saying she didn't have anywhere else to go and that she needed my help. She also guilt-tripped me, saying things like, "I thought family was supposed to help each other, and you're being selfish." I stayed firm and offered alternatives. She could look for short-term rentals, stay with friends, or even contact her company for temporary housing assistance. But she kept pressing, and after a heated conversation, she accused me of choosing my comfort over family. Since then, our relationship has been strained. She barely talks to me, and when she does, it's passive-aggressive. She has been posting vague messages on social media about family not being supportive and about people who only care about themselves. I haven't engaged with those posts. My parents are also involved. They think I should have helped, at least a little, but I feel like letting Ryan stay again would cross a boundary I'm not willing to compromise. I started wondering if I'm the asshole here. I do feel for Emma. She's in a tough spot, but I also feel like my home and my peace should come first. Ryan has a history of disregarding other people's space and rules, and I really don't want him in my house for an extended period. Emma is my sister, but I don't feel obligated to compromise my living space for someone who has repeatedly disrespected it. I haven't suggested letting Emma stay without Ryan because she refuses to be separated from him and won't even consider that option. I have also offered to help her, find resources, give her money for a temporary place, or even drive her to stay somewhere else, but she insists that the only acceptable solution is him living in my house. I'm feeling torn because I love my sister, but I also feel that my boundaries are important. I want to maintain my home as a safe and peaceful space, and I feel like bending to her demands would set a precedent that I am not willing to establish. I also feel a bit frustrated because my parents are subtly pressuring me, implying that if I were a good sister, I would let him stay. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move into my home, despite her desperate situation and my parents' opinions. I want to support her in ways that don't compromise my own well-being, but I'm afraid people see me as selfish for drawing this line. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of family drama? I, 28F, have been dealing with family drama for years, but this recent situation has me questioning whether I'm the bad guy here. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, just got engaged to her fiancé, Jason, 27M, and immediately started planning a destination wedding in Hawaii. Sounds amazing, right? But here's where it gets complicated. Emily and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, good grades, good at sports, everyone loved her. I was the quieter, introverted one, and although my parents never outwardly favored her, there was always an unspoken comparison that left me feeling inadequate. Over the years, I've tried to maintain a relationship with her, but our conversations often end with passive-aggressive comments or her dismissing my feelings. Fast forward to the present. Emily invited me to her wedding. She sent a formal invitation with travel details, accommodations, and a link to the wedding website. At first, I was excited. I wanted to support her and share this milestone. But when I discussed it with my parents, things got messy. My parents have a history of creating tension at family events, and they made it clear that they expect me to play nice with Emily, her fiancé, and everyone else attending. Knowing my parents, that means ignoring my feelings and essentially performing emotional labor for the sake of appearances. Here's the kicker. My sister and her fiancé have also invited several people I deeply dislike. There's a cousin who has been cruel to me since childhood, and Emily's best friend, who once spread a rumor that nearly ruined my reputation in college. I've tried to move past these incidents, but being in an enclosed environment like a wedding, especially a destination wedding where we'll all be forced to interact, feels like setting myself up for emotional turmoil. I tried explaining my concerns to Emily. I told her I was struggling with the idea of attending because of past conflicts with her guests and my own mental health. I suggested that perhaps I could celebrate with them in another way, like a smaller family gathering before or after the wedding. She responded coldly, saying that if I didn't come to the wedding, I wasn't really supporting her and that I was being selfish and dramatic. She even said that she couldn't understand why I would let past grievances get in the way of her happiness. I also spoke with my parents about it. They insisted that I needed to put my feelings aside and attend, framing it as my duty as a sister. They said things like, family comes first, and you're making this bigger than it needs to be. They've even offered to pay part of my travel expenses to make it easier. I appreciate that, but I don't think money solves the underlying emotional stress. I'm currently weighing my options. On one hand, I love my sister and I don't want to miss such a significant event in her life. On the other hand, I can't shake the feeling that attending this wedding could cause me serious anxiety and resentment. I'm also worried that if I go, I might have an emotional outburst or end up avoiding everyone, which could lead to more awkwardness and tension. Some friends have told me that I'm being unreasonable and that I should just suck it up for 1 week. Others have suggested that my concerns are valid and that it's okay to prioritize my mental health. I've even thought about going, but only staying for the ceremony and skipping the reception to minimize exposure to stressful interactions. But even that feels like I'd be compromising too much. My fiancé, 30M, is supportive of me skipping the wedding. He's been through family drama himself and believes that mental health comes before social expectations. He says that Emily's wedding is about her, but it's not reasonable for me to sacrifice my well-being for the sake of appearances. I know he's right logically, but I still feel guilty. Guilt is the hardest part. I've been wrestling with this for weeks. Part of me thinks I should go for the sake of family unity, but another part knows that doing so could trigger years of unresolved tension. I even tried reaching out to Emily again, suggesting a video call or a private lunch before the wedding, but she hasn't responded positively. She just reiterated that I need to support her fully or not at all. So here I am, stuck in a situation where every option feels like a loss. I don't want to create more drama, but I also don't want to compromise my mental health for 1 week of family expectations. I've been thinking of writing a heartfelt letter explaining my absence and expressing my love and support from afar. But even that feels like it might not be enough to satisfy my sister or parents. I'm leaning toward not going for my own peace of mind. I plan to send a gift and a letter, and I'm considering proposing a smaller, personal celebration with Emily when she returns. I want her to know I love her, but I also want to protect myself from a week of potential emotional strain. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of ongoing family drama and personal mental health concerns. I realize this is complicated, and I know family events are tricky, but I genuinely don't want to harm my relationship with Emily. I just don't know if attending under these circumstances would actually strengthen or damage it further. I feel like either choice, going or not going, carries emotional risk. I'm just hoping for some perspective on whether skipping the wedding makes me selfish or if it's a reasonable decision given the context. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting. My sister, Emily, and I have always had a complicated relationship. We grew up in a family where our parents favored her more because she was the golden child, academically successful and socially charismatic, while I was considered shy and difficult. Over the years, I've mostly avoided confrontation with her because she can be incredibly vindictive and holds grudges. That said, I have a wonderful life, a loving spouse, and 2 kids who are the center of my world. Emily got engaged last year, and I was genuinely happy for her. She has been through a rough divorce, and I thought this might be the fresh start she needed. When she announced the wedding, she asked me to contribute financially, and I initially agreed. She asked me for $1,500, and I didn't hesitate because I wanted to support her. However, things started to get strange after that. Emily has a very particular vision for her wedding. She sent me long lists of what she needed me to buy for her bridal party, decor, and even minor things like matching thank you cards. Every time I tried to suggest an alternative or something more affordable, she got annoyed and told me I didn't understand how important it was. I started noticing that the wedding was turning into more of a show of extravagance rather than a celebration, but I tried to ignore it. The tension escalated about 3 months before the wedding. My son, who is 6, has ADHD, and my daughter, who is 4, has severe anxiety around large crowds. Emily insisted I bring both of them to the bridal shower, which was being held at a high-end restaurant with a live string quartet. I explained that my kids would likely be disruptive and that my husband and I might need to leave early if they became overwhelmed. Emily laughed and said, "You always overreact with those kids. Maybe that's why you're not as successful as me. You spend too much time parenting instead of living your life." I was stunned. I had never expected her to attack my parenting, especially in front of other family members. I tried to defuse it by saying that I would manage the situation, but I left the shower early because my daughter had a panic attack when a server accidentally dropped a tray near her. After that, Emily started sending me increasingly passive-aggressive messages. She complained about the gifts I bought for her wedding, saying they weren't luxurious enough, even though I spent well over $800 on presents. She criticized my kids in front of our parents and other relatives, saying they were uncontrollable and embarrassing. I tried to shrug it off, but it hurt deeply. My children are not perfect, but I am proud of them, and I felt like Emily was trying to shame me for having a normal family life that doesn't fit her ideal. A month before the wedding, she sent me a formal email outlining what I still owed financially. She included a breakdown that suggested I needed to pay another $2,000 because I hadn't bought certain decorations, dresses for the flower girls, or contributions to the catering. I was shocked because this was the first I had heard of many of these expenses. I called her to clarify, and she said, "You don't want my wedding to be perfect, do you? You clearly don't care about family." When I tried to explain that my kids' needs and our budget were priorities, she yelled, "Maybe that's why you're stuck in mediocrity. You're too selfish to think about anyone else." I froze. I had never heard my sister talk to me like this. I told her calmly that I would not be sending any more money. She responded by threatening to exclude me and my family from the wedding entirely, saying, "Fine, if you can't be part of the family celebration, then stay home. We don't need your negativity around." I realized she was trying to guilt me, but I was done. I told her that I would attend the wedding without giving any further financial support, but if she continued to insult my family, I would leave. She said that was ridiculous and hung up. On the day of the wedding, I showed up with my husband and kids. I dressed nicely, brought a thoughtful gift, and tried to be cheerful. Emily, however, was frosty. She refused to speak to me except for brief greetings and ignored my kids entirely. When my daughter accidentally spilled some punch on the floor, Emily snapped at me in front of all the guests, saying, "See, this is why kids shouldn't be allowed at weddings." I told her I would clean it up, but it wasn't a big deal. She continued glaring at me for the rest of the event. My son, feeling the tension, was quiet most of the night, and my daughter stayed close to me. At the reception, my parents pulled me aside and said I should have just paid the extra money to avoid drama. I told them I couldn't reward her behavior with more money, and that made them upset too. After the wedding, Emily posted pictures online and captioned them with messages about how everyone contributed to make this day perfect, except some people. It was clear she was referring to me. I haven't spoken to her since, and honestly, I don't want to. My husband thinks I did the right thing by standing up for my family, but some relatives are calling me selfish and ungrateful. I'm torn because I know Emily values appearances and wants everyone to contribute to her vision, but her insults toward me and my children crossed a line. I feel like she's punishing me for prioritizing my kids' well-being and refusing to be financially bullied. On the other hand, my parents and some cousins keep telling me that family is about compromise and that I owe her for all the money I already spent. I don't think that's fair because her behavior has been hostile and hurtful. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting and my children. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house, even though he says I'm the only family member he trusts. I, 35F, own a large 2-story house in a suburban area that I bought about 5 years ago. I work full-time as a software engineer, and I spend a lot of my free time maintaining the house and my garden. I have always been very particular about how my home is used and who I invite over. I live alone, and my space is very important to me. My younger brother, Jake, 30M, is very close to me. We've always been the kind of siblings who could talk about anything, and we have supported each other through major life events. Lately, Jake has been planning his wedding. He's been with his fiancée, Laura, 28F, for about 3 years, and they recently got engaged. Their plan was to have a small, intimate wedding with close friends and family. A couple of weeks ago, Jake called me excitedly and asked if I could host the wedding at my house. He said it would be a very small gathering, just about 40 people, and that he trusts me more than anyone else to manage the logistics because he knows my home and my organization skills. He said he couldn't imagine celebrating such an important day anywhere else. At first, I was flattered that he trusted me, but I immediately felt anxious. My house, while spacious, is my personal sanctuary. I have expensive furniture, fragile decorations, and a garden that I have spent years cultivating. I also work from home and have a very structured routine. The thought of dozens of people walking through my space, potentially damaging things or disrupting my environment, made me extremely uncomfortable. I tried to explain this to Jake. I said that I wasn't comfortable hosting a wedding in my home, and I offered alternative suggestions, like renting a local hall, having it at a park, or even using a friend's property that was used for events before. I emphasized that it wasn't personal and that I was happy to help organize, plan, and manage the event in other ways. Jake's reaction was immediate and intense. He was upset, raised his voice, and said things like, "I thought family was supposed to support each other. You're always so controlling about your house. And if you loved me, you'd want to be part of this day." He also said that he didn't trust anyone else to host it properly, and that it would mean a lot to him if I said yes. He even started crying on the phone, which made me feel guilty, but I still didn't want to agree. Over the next few days, Jake sent multiple messages trying to convince me. He reminded me of all the times I had supported him through college, breakup recoveries, and career changes, implying that hosting his wedding would be the natural next step in that support. He also hinted that not hosting it would be disappointing and might hurt our relationship permanently. I stuck to my decision and explained again that I was happy to help with planning, catering suggestions, decoration ideas, and even setting up the venue, but I could not physically host the event in my home. He accused me of being selfish and said I was prioritizing my comfort over my family. The situation escalated further when our parents got involved. They said I was being unreasonable and that a home wedding would be beautiful and special. They kept telling me that my house is large enough and that I was overthinking potential damages. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the size or logistics, but about my personal comfort, boundaries, and the effort it would take to prepare the house for a wedding. Laura, my brother's fiancée, also reached out, saying she understood my concerns but hoped I could reconsider because it would make their day more meaningful. She tried to offer compromises, like hiring cleaners, bringing in temporary flooring, and making sure nobody touched fragile items. Despite all these reassurances, I still felt uncomfortable. The idea of my private home becoming a public event space for even a few hours felt overwhelming, and I knew that I would be stressed the entire time, which would ruin my enjoyment of the day and could potentially strain my relationship with Jake anyway. After holding firm, Jake stopped talking to me for a week. Our parents are disappointed. My social media has gotten messages from distant relatives calling me selfish, and Jake has started making plans that explicitly exclude me from certain wedding prep tasks. He even hinted that he might not invite me to the rehearsal dinner if I don't come around. I feel terrible because I love my brother and I want his wedding to be perfect, but I also feel like this is my house and my boundary. I have offered every alternative form of support I can think of, helping plan the schedule, managing invitations, organizing catering, decorating, helping with setup at a rented venue, and even hosting small pre-wedding gatherings in my home. But the one request that I am refusing is the actual hosting of the wedding itself, and it has caused a huge rift. I keep wondering if I'm being selfish. Maybe my attachment to my home and my need for control is preventing me from supporting my brother in a meaningful way. At the same time, I know that compromising this particular boundary would make me extremely uncomfortable and could have lasting negative effects on our relationship. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house, even though he says I'm the only family member he trusts and is upset by my refusal. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of her mistreatment. I, 29F, have always been the quiet one in my family. My older sister, Emily, 32F, has always been the favored child, smart, outgoing, and constantly praised by our parents for every little achievement. I, on the other hand, have always flown under the radar, and I've learned to accept that my successes are rarely acknowledged. This dynamic has always created tension, but I mostly kept my distance and focused on my own life. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her boyfriend, Mark, 33M. I had met Mark a few times, and he seemed like a genuinely kind person, so I was happy for her. At first, I tried to get involved in wedding planning, mostly because my parents pressured me to help and because I wanted to maintain some semblance of a relationship with Emily. However, it didn't take long before the familiar pattern of Emily belittling me resurfaced. It started with the engagement party. Emily asked me to help coordinate some decorations and seating arrangements. I spent weeks designing a layout, picking colors, and organizing tables. When I presented my ideas, she rolled her eyes, said it was too boring, and dismissed all of my work without offering any constructive feedback. She ended up hiring a friend to redo everything. And when the party came, she made sure to publicly thank her friend for saving the decor without acknowledging my efforts. I was hurt, but I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe this was just wedding stress. The pattern continued over the next few months. Whenever I tried to contribute ideas, whether for invitations, music playlists, or seating charts, Emily would either ignore me or outright insult my choices. She once called my suggestions lazy and childish in front of my parents, who didn't intervene. Mark, who usually stayed neutral, sometimes defended me, but Emily would immediately shut him down, insisting it was nothing serious and that I was overreacting. I began to dread any interaction with her, but my parents kept insisting I needed to support my sister on her big day. About 2 months before the wedding, Emily asked me to be one of her bridesmaids. I hesitated because I had already noticed how she treated me and wasn't sure I wanted to be in the spotlight with her constantly criticizing me. I politely declined, explaining that I didn't feel comfortable standing by her side after the way she had treated me. She exploded. She said I was selfish and jealous, and that I was ruining her special day. She cried and accused me of never being there for her, which felt like gaslighting because I had always tried to maintain a relationship despite her behavior. My parents pressured me again, but I stood my ground and said I would attend as a guest, but not as a bridesmaid. That should have been the end of it, but Emily took it as a personal attack. Over the following weeks, she sent me passive-aggressive texts about wedding planning, like "hope you're not planning to sit in the back and sulk," or "don't worry, I'll make sure you still have something to do during the ceremony." I ignored most of these messages, but I began to notice that my parents were subtly trying to manipulate me as well. They would comment on how Emily needed her sister or how family support matters, implying that I was the villain if I didn't comply. Then came the final straw. Emily decided that she wanted a family toast before the reception and insisted I give one. I told her I wasn't comfortable speaking publicly because I get very anxious in front of crowds, and also because I didn't want to be forced into a moment that felt performative after years of mistreatment. Emily accused me of being dramatic and attention-seeking for refusing. My parents weighed in, saying it was just a few words and that I could say something nice and be done with it. I tried reasoning that I didn't want to contribute to a moment that felt disingenuous, and they responded by guilt-tripping me, saying Emily would never forgive me if I didn't participate. A week before the wedding, I realized I didn't actually want to attend. Being around Emily had always been emotionally draining, and the thought of navigating her insults, the forced smiles, and the expectations from my parents made me anxious and upset. I sent her a message explaining my feelings, that I didn't feel respected or valued by her, that attending would make me uncomfortable, and that I needed to prioritize my mental health. I offered to send a gift and celebrate with her in a smaller setting after the honeymoon. The response was immediate and extreme. Emily called me selfish, cold, and ungrateful. She said I was choosing to hurt the one person who loves me the most, and that I was embarrassing the family. My parents joined in, lecturing me about duty, loyalty, and family reputation. Mark tried to mediate, telling Emily that I had valid reasons and that forcing someone to attend against their wishes wasn't fair, but she dismissed him entirely. Since then, I've been blocked on Emily's social media and have not spoken to her directly. My parents still occasionally text or call to guilt me, saying I need to fix things before the wedding. I haven't changed my mind. I feel like attending would only reinforce a pattern where my boundaries and feelings are ignored, and I don't see why I should sacrifice my mental health to avoid family drama. Some friends have told me I'm in the right for setting boundaries, while others have suggested I'm overreacting and should just attend for appearances. I'm conflicted because I do want to maintain some connection with my family, and I feel guilty for not supporting Emily on what is supposed to be one of the happiest moments of her life. At the same time, I know that attending under duress would only lead to resentment and more emotional harm. I've considered that my absence might permanently damage my relationship with Emily and my parents, but I also feel that my history with her, years of being belittled and dismissed, justifies prioritizing myself. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of her mistreatment? I genuinely don't want to hurt anyone, but I also can't ignore the pattern of disrespect and the toll it takes on my mental health. I'm stuck between family obligations and self-preservation, and I don't know if refusing to attend makes me the bad guy or a person finally standing up for herself. AITA for potentially ruining my sister's wedding over something I feel strongly about? This has been eating at me for months, and I honestly don't know if I overstepped or if my concerns were valid. I'm trying to be as honest and detailed as possible so you can judge fairly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who has always been more spontaneous than me. I tend to overthink and plan everything, whereas she dives headfirst into whatever feels right in the moment. Growing up has caused a lot of friction between us, but we've always been close. She's getting married next month to a guy named Matt, 27M, and the wedding plans have been complicated to say the least. A few months ago, Emily called me out of the blue to ask for my help at the wedding. She said she was struggling with budgeting and didn't want to overextend herself financially. She mentioned that Matt's family had offered to contribute a large amount, which she felt grateful for, but didn't want to depend on too heavily. I offered to help her create a detailed budget and timeline, and she seemed relieved. As we started discussing the wedding, I noticed a few things that made me uneasy. First, Emily wanted to invite nearly 200 people to a venue that could comfortably seat 120. She shrugged off the capacity limit, saying she figured people could stand around or sit outside. I tried to explain that it might violate fire regulations or make the guests uncomfortable, but she waved it off. Then there was the matter of the catering. She wanted a buffet of 10 different cuisines, some of which require special preparation, all within a budget that was, frankly, unrealistic. I ran some numbers and pointed out that the costs were likely going to exceed her budget by at least $5,000. She responded that she would figure it out closer to the date and didn't see the problem. I admit I was worried, but I didn't say anything yet because she asked me to be supportive and not stress her out. Things got more complicated when she revealed her wedding colors and theme. Emily loves bright, clashing colors, and she wanted neon pink, lime green, and electric blue everywhere. She also wanted a fantasy carnival theme, complete with a clown, juggling performers, and a DIY photo booth that required a lot of technical setup. I gently suggested that the theme might not appeal to all guests and could make photos look chaotic, but she insisted it was quirky and fun, and everyone would get it. I tried to stay neutral, but the tipping point came when Emily asked me to design her wedding invitations. I'm not a professional designer, but I have a decent eye for aesthetics. I noticed she wanted glitter, stickers, holographic paper, and a pop-up element shaped like a unicorn, which, combined with the clashing colors, made the invite extremely difficult to read. I hesitated, but she pressured me, saying, "You're good at this. Just make it amazing." I spent hours trying to make it work, but ultimately felt it was visually overwhelming. The breaking point happened last week. Emily called me crying because the venue informed her that the date she picked was double booked. She said she had told Matt, but he didn't respond in time. I tried to reassure her and suggested an alternative nearby venue that could fit everyone. She hesitated and then said she wanted to try to make it work with the original venue because it had sentimental value. I finally snapped. I told her very bluntly that the entire wedding seemed set up to fail. Over budget, chaotic theme, impossible logistics. I also brought up her decision to invite people who had previously been disruptive at family events and warned her that it could cause tension during the ceremony. She got extremely upset and accused me of being controlling and negative. She said, "I asked for help, not a lecture," and hung up on me. Since then, I haven't spoken much to Emily. I sent a few texts apologizing for being harsh, but also explaining that I felt like no one was being realistic. About the scale of the wedding, Matt texted me separately and said Emily was hurt and he was trying to mediate, but he also agreed that the planning was all over the place. I offered to take a step back and let them handle it, but I'm worried that they're going to run into major problems closer to the wedding, and I'll feel partially responsible if things fall apart. Our parents have been involved too. They sided with Emily, saying I need to back off and let her make her own choices. My friends, on the other hand, agree with me, saying I did the right thing by pointing out logistical issues before it was too late. I feel torn because I love my sister and want her wedding to be beautiful, but I also don't want her to face preventable disasters. I've been replaying the conversation in my head over and over. Was I too harsh? Should I have kept quiet, even though I was genuinely concerned? I hate that she's upset with me, but I also hate the thought of her wedding day being ruined by avoidable issues. I'm not trying to control her, but I also feel like sometimes honesty is necessary, even if it's uncomfortable. So, Reddit AITA for being brutally honest with my sister about the wedding planning and potentially upsetting her? Or should I have stayed silent and let her make what I genuinely believe are poor decisions? AITA for refusing to give my roommate a second loan after she mismanaged the first one? I, 30F, have been living with my roommate, Emily, 29F, for about 3 years. We met through mutual friends and clicked instantly, so when she needed a place to stay after moving cities, I offered her my spare bedroom. We split rent and bills evenly, and our living arrangement has generally been smooth. Emily is a kind and funny person, but she has always had issues with financial management, which I tolerated initially because I thought living together might help her stay on track. About 6 months ago, Emily asked if I could lend her $2,500 to cover some unexpected car repairs. She explained that her paycheck wouldn't cover it, and she promised she'd pay me back within 3 months. I was hesitant, but ultimately agreed because I trusted her and wanted to help. We even drew up a simple repayment agreement to keep everything clear. At first, Emily made some small payments, but after the first 2 months, she started missing deadlines. She would make excuses like unexpected bills, her phone plan, or groceries costing more than expected. I tried to be patient and understanding, but after 3 months, she still hadn't repaid the full amount. I asked her to at least pay what she could each week, but sometimes she would miss even those partial payments. I reminded her that the agreement wasn't optional and that I needed the money back, but she seemed overwhelmed and stressed, and she admitted she wasn't budgeting properly. Fast forward to last month. Emily approached me again and asked if I could lend her another $1,500. She claimed she needed it for a deposit on a rental for a short-term project in another city. I was immediately uncomfortable. She still hadn't paid back the first loan in full, and there was no guarantee she would repay a second one. I explained this to her, calmly stating that I couldn't give her another loan until she had repaid the first one. I suggested she could consider alternatives, borrowing from family, getting a credit card, or finding a short-term personal loan from a bank. Emily's reaction shocked me. She became extremely upset, accusing me of not trusting her and saying that I was being cold and selfish. She insisted that I was her only option because our mutual friends didn't lend her money and her family couldn't help. She even tried to guilt-trip me, reminding me that I had lent her money before and that she would be struggling without me. I stuck to my boundaries and said I couldn't risk giving her more money until she repaid the first loan. Since then, our relationship has been tense. Emily has been distant and short with me, sometimes passive-aggressive, and she's brought up the issue in front of our mutual friends. A few of them have told me that I should just help her again to avoid damaging our friendship. I understand that perspective, but I also feel like I have the right to protect my finances and insist on accountability. Lending her more money without any guarantee would put me at risk and would enable her poor financial habits rather than helping her. I've offered to help her in other ways, budgeting, looking for financial assistance programs, or helping her find temporary work for the deposit she needs. She refuses these alternatives, insisting that only a loan from me will work. I'm worried because I don't want to lose her as a friend, but I also don't want to be financially exploited. I've been clear about my limits and have tried to remain supportive without giving in to repeated requests. AITA for refusing to lend my roommate a second loan after she hasn't repaid the first one. I feel like I've been fair, patient, and responsible, but Emily and some friends think I'm being unsympathetic and damaging our friendship. I want to help her, but I also need to protect my financial stability and enforce boundaries, and I'm not sure how to navigate the situation without causing further tension. Has anyone else dealt with a friend or roommate repeatedly asking for money they can't repay? How did you enforce boundaries without completely ruining the relationship? I want to maintain our friendship and continue living together peacefully, but I also don't want to compromise my own security or enable irresponsible behavior. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at my father's funeral. I, 28F, have been struggling with whether I'm being unreasonable or not, and I need some outside perspective. This is going to be long, but I want to give the full context. My family has always been complicated, but I thought I could navigate it with some boundaries until recent events made me realize that maybe some boundaries need to be stricter than I thought. 2 months ago, my father passed away very unexpectedly. He had always been the type to keep things in the background, never outwardly showing favoritism, but it was clear as children that he had his preferences. My sister, 32F, and I had very different relationships with him. She was closer to him in a lot of ways, shared hobbies, similar personalities, and he was always more involved in her life decisions. I loved him dearly, but our personalities clashed, and I think he struggled to connect with me sometimes. I think this is important context because it played a huge role in what happened. The day of the funeral was chaotic, as funerals often are, but it was particularly so because my sister took charge of almost everything. She had planned the service down to the smallest detail, which I didn't mind initially because I wasn't in a position to do much. But as people arrived, it became clear that she had made a point of controlling who got to speak, who sat where, and how everything unfolded. I noticed that my name was not included in the program as someone who would speak, which was hurtful but not entirely surprising. I tried to stay calm and respect her plans. The moment that really broke me happened during the eulogy portion. My sister gave a speech about our father that was long, detailed, and, at least in my view, selectively edited. She focused heavily on the things he and she had done together, and she kept referencing my father and I in ways that implicitly excluded my relationship with him. When I stood up to speak, she interrupted me, saying that the audience didn't have time and that she had already covered what needed to be said. I was flabbergasted. My father had always told me that he valued honesty, authenticity, and expressing what you felt. Being denied that at his own funeral felt like a betrayal. Several relatives noticed, and a few quietly expressed disappointment, but no one publicly challenged her. After the funeral, I tried to process everything and gave my sister some space. I was hurt, yes, but I thought maybe I was overreacting. Then came the messages about her upcoming wedding. She announced the date and asked everyone to RSVP. Normally, I would be thrilled, but given what happened at the funeral, I felt hesitant. I tried to reach out to her privately to express my feelings, not to demand an apology, but to communicate that being sidelined at our father's funeral hurt me deeply and that I wasn't sure I could handle attending a wedding where I might feel similarly excluded. She read my message, but didn't respond. A few days later, she posted on social media about her wedding planning, explicitly mentioning that she was honored to have my closest friends and family, but interestingly did not tag me or mention me in the post, even though she had tagged others in the family. I wrestled with my emotions for weeks. Part of me wanted to go because despite everything, she's my sister. Another part felt that attending would be like condoning the way she treated me at the funeral. I tried to reason with myself, thinking that maybe I could just show up, be polite, and leave early if needed. But then I heard from another cousin who attended the planning meetings that my sister had actively discouraged certain relatives from speaking with me about the wedding or even inviting me to pre-wedding events. That was the tipping point. I felt like my presence wasn't wanted, and that hurt far more than the fear of missing the event. I finally decided to write her an email explaining my decision not to attend. I tried to be calm and reasonable, sticking to facts and expressing my feelings, how being interrupted and silenced at our father's funeral hurt me, how I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding under the current circumstances, and that I hoped she would understand that this was about protecting my mental health, not about trying to punish her. I sent it with the expectation that she might be upset, but also that she might at least acknowledge my feelings. Instead, she sent a reply that was, in my view, dismissive and passive-aggressive. She said that my refusal to attend over something that happened weeks ago was dramatic and selfish, that I was making everything about me, and that she couldn't wait to move on and have a happy day without negativity. I haven't replied, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to. Since then, other family members have reached out, with some defending her and saying I should get over it because it's her big day. Others have privately expressed support for me and acknowledged that what happened at the funeral was wrong. My parents were divorced, and my mother passed away years ago, so my father's funeral was one of the few times we had as a family to grieve him together. That it turned into a situation where I felt silence has left me shaken. I know some people might say I should put aside my hurt for the sake of family and attend, but I honestly don't think that's healthy for me. I feel like attending would be more about keeping up appearances than genuinely celebrating with her. At the same time, I worry that my refusal might permanently damage our relationship and create a family divide that I'm not sure how to repair. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after how she treated me at my father's funeral. I keep thinking maybe I'm overreacting or letting hurt feelings dictate my choices, but at the same time, I feel like boundaries are necessary to protect myself from further emotional harm. I want to be fair, but I also need to prioritize my own well-being. I've debated trying to attend, but only to be polite, maybe sitting in the back or leaving early, but the thought of seeing her, watching her celebrate, and potentially being ignored or sidelined again feels unbearable. My partner has been supportive of my decision and even offered to help me draft a letter explaining things if needed. Still, I feel like everyone else in the family might see me as petty or unforgiving. I guess what I'm looking for is an objective take. Am I being unreasonable for choosing to step away from a major family event because of what happened at a prior family gathering? Should I attempt to patch things and attend despite my feelings? Or am I justified in prioritizing my own mental health? I've thought about offering a gesture like sending a card or gift, but I feel like even that might be interpreted as condoning her behavior. I just don't know what the right balance is between asserting my boundaries and maintaining family peace. I'm exhausted, hurt, and confused, and I want to do what's best for myself without creating unnecessary family drama. But every time I think about it, I feel guilty. AITA for standing firm on my decision not to attend my sister's wedding after being treated that way at our father's funeral. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.